We're live, pal. Andrew Zarian. I have a question for you. Are you
Yes,
ready?
sir. Yes, sir.
Are you ready to put your money where your effing mouth is? That's what Tony
You,
Khan wants to know.
I'm so sorry, Tony. I'm so sorry. Is he yelling at me? Am I getting yelled at again by them?
You might be getting yelled at.
Well, the Will Ospreay story didn't sit well, but it's all right. It's all right.
So we got this pay-per-view on Saturday that was, it's more of a mixed bag for an AEW show than we are used to, but still I thought it was the feedback was mostly positive to me, at least as far as I heard. But what has overshadowed the entire show, really, at least for our sort of set in this universe, in this hardcore reporting universe, is this quote that Tony Khan made in the press conference, the post show presser, when he was talking about the Continental Classic, which is the tournament that is set to start on Wednesday. We don't have a field. We have a few wrestlers who are in this tournament, but there's no field. There's no brackets. We can't like sort of engage as we would with a G1 quite yet. But I wanted to read the entire quote because I think the entire quote in
Yeah.
context, you kind of have to hear it. Now, I didn't watch the press conference, so I don't know what his voice sounded like when he said it, but I want to read the quote to you. Give me your thoughts, and I'm very interested to hear if you understand what he's really frustrated with. So let me read the quote. Tony Khan from the post-show presser said, I think that if people want to see the sports-based presentation in every match, there's 33 matches in the Continental Classic, so get ready, strap in, get ready. Every Wednesday and Saturday, the same people who don't want to see any outside interference. I'm not BSing. I'm dead serious. If you don't want to see any outside interference, if you want to see straight wrestling at its very best in a great field, then put your money where your effing mouth is. Wednesdays and Saturdays, I expect to see you strapped in because we are going to put on the best wrestling tournament with some great matches. All right. Give me your
Yes.
take on what he said. What was he frustrated about here?
I don't know. Do they do a ton of outside interferences? Because I don't feel like it's like a thing that AEW is known for.
Well, that show on Saturday, with the irony in his statement was that show had outside interference in just about every other match.
Did they? Oh, yes. Saturday, the Saturday show. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, I don't know. I thought it was I love that show. I had a great time watching it. A lot of people did not like it. They had issues. I heard what Dave said about there were many people that contacted him and they were talking about how for 3 hours they were kind of like, well, what happens with the main event? Um, I don't. I didn't feel that way. I always thought that MJF was going to wrestle in there, but I
Mm-hmm.
do understand what Tony's talking about. Listen, if he's going to go down a traditional G1 style tournament. I love that kind of stuff. It's right up my alley, so I'm welcoming this. This is going to be fun.
Okay. Do you sense that he believes the sports presentation, the tournament style similar to a G1 where winners and losers are important, the point scoring, the end goal of where they're going? Do you sense that this is what he believes his product should be? Or is he responding to maybe even a minority of criticism here? Because there was frustration in that quote, and I kind of wondered, was he reading like immediate feedback from people as the show was over? Is that who he was responding to? Because that quote did not sit well with a lot of the fans who pay for every show and watch every Dynamite and Collision and Rampage. I don't know if everyone was frustrated, but I have heard from a good amount of people who just were like, "What the heck was he on? Why is he yelling at us?"
Um, listen, I mean, they did do a sports based, presentation originally, right? They were going to talk about the rankings and, but that went out the window. The records were always a big deal. I think they kind of realized that they were held to that standard, to that list of people, and they couldn't create interesting matches. You couldn't have like a Danhausen challenge for the world title. And they have to get a way around it. I kind of understand that, but I don't necessarily feel like listen, it's very possible that the criticism is getting to him. I know that there are multiple camps within that company that one believes that the storyline driven content is where the future is for the business. And there's another, group of people that believe that everything needs to be taken seriously and presented as if it's a real sport. I mean, I think the true answer is being somewhere in the middle and having a good balance. If you're trying to appeal to the most amount of people, you got to have a balance of everything. That's why you got to do the wacky shenanigans and you got to do comedy matches and you got to do serious matches. These are all part of trying to get to as many people as possible. I don't know who he was upset with. The criticism that I saw live on that day, I was watching it a little differently though. It was my wife's birthday, so I wasn't totally engaged throughout the whole night. I watched it
Sure,
in the
me
morning,
too.
but
I watched it in a sort of a similar way.
I watched most of it. I mean, it was on and off, right? I was watching it. Then the following morning, I rewatched everything. I got up at 6:00 so I could watch everything and it doesn't interrupt my day. The criticism that I saw was during the Jericho match. Jericho tends to get that now for some reason. There's a pocket on the internet that really dislikes him in anything he does. So it was a little bit of that. And the criticism for the Hangman match which I have none. I thought that, and we'll talk about it obviously because I thought that match was absolutely perfect. I loved everything about it, and I hate death matches. And then the main event, the Max story. So it's very possible there's multiple camps in there. Some people think they need to be more storyline driven. Some people think that they need to be more sports based. But it really comes down to who's Tony listening to, or should he listen to any of them? And he should go with what his gut feeling is.
So there is a Voices of Wrestling Patreon piece that came out today that I think a lot of people are going to want to check out if they haven't already. I had it sent to me. People have been asking me about it, and I just thought it was very interesting. We're not going to read from it, but I just kind of wanted to grab from the end of it. So the whole thing is about Tony's quote and maybe the pivot that they've made with their show and maybe to a more WWE style of sports entertainment. But the end quote I thought was very interesting. The way that this was closed, I believe this is Joe Lanza. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it is Joe's writing. He ended with a quote from Tony Khan in 2019, and I wanted to just read it because I thought it was a really good closing. He wrote, this is Tony Khan's words, 2019. Wrestling fans have wanted and needed something different, authentic, and better for far too long. AEW is answering the call. AEW is more than wrestling. It's about a movement fueled by wrestling fans who have been underserved and perhaps even disappointed by what the industry has produced in recent years. So, it's, we're kind of cherry picking things here and there, but I did think that was an interesting quote because that is not the same vision, it seems like, that Tony Khan's quote from the post-show press conference was describing. And some of it is just, the change, right? There's evolution in what he's doing. He has partners who may want different things from him. He's got new wrestlers who have come in. He's got people helping him with creative that are different than they were in 2019. But yeah, I wanted to point it out because there does seem to be a frustration that he responded to. I really think he should probably get out ahead of this and apologize for that quote, because I do think that some of his hardcore fans and folks who fight with people on the internet defending him, I think they get their feelings hurt, really, because this is a fan that supports the product, right, through good and bad.
That maybe he's not talking to those people, right? Maybe he's talking about the fair weather fan that shows up and just criticizes the product and then leaves. There's plenty of those also.
Well, but I can tell you the people who responded to me who felt that quote were the hardcore of the hardcore.
But because they've been critical of Tony, or because they is that because they see that there's a problem with current?
I think that they enjoy a sports presentation, but they also enjoy just the product. They enjoy having an alternative. And I don't know if maybe They felt
Garrett,
personally attacked. I don't know.
I mean, in the moment where things were, kumbaya in AEW, they did some hokey stuff.
Oh,
The
totally.
Jericho dancing with MJF, I thought that
The
was ridiculous, and
Ghostbusters.
everybody loved it, right? The
Yeah.
same people that don't like the whole Tony Storm thing are the same people that love Jericho dancing around and doing, with MJF. I find, listen, there are times that I watch that product and I'm like, this stinks. I've been very critical of it, and I get crap. The second I criticize AEW, I'm an AEW, I'm a WWE apologist. Then I criticize
There you
WWE,
go.
and I'm obsessed with AEW, and I hate WWE. I think actually the climate of social media is disgusting. I think Tony needs to spend less time on there. I I could post one simple thing, and people are like, you're out of your mind. Uh, I think it's I want to word this properly. Okay.
Mhm.
I think for Tony, it's a lot of growing pains. This company grew very, very quickly. They didn't
Mhm.
start off with a small fan base and then grow and kind of get to, a million plus. They started off hot from the gate because people were hungry for another alternative. And now at the end of the day, wrestling kind of blends and becomes all the same. And I think people are disappointed that it's becoming more sports entertainment than anything else. Right. And I do
Mhm.
see that. I am critical of that. There is a lot of WWE-esque product, storylines and things that they do in on that show on Dynamite and Collision. More Dynamite than Collision, but you know, you have a lot of people that you're listening to. You got to listen to the network. You got to listen to everybody that's helping you run that company and book that company and come up with storylines and the talent. And, for Tony's case, I think he's just getting pulled in 15 different directions. And sometimes it's not the right decision he's given a green light to. I think that's
Sure.
really what it comes down to. This MJF storyline, I don't like at all. And I have not
Mhm.
liked it from the second they started it. But that's my perspective, right? I'm not there's plenty of other things that I do enjoy on the show. I'm still letting it go where I hope it goes, somewhere positive, but there is a lot of stuff that I could be critical about. But at the end of the day, what are we looking to watch? How many times are we going to be able to say or Tony do a 30-minute TV match with Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson? If that's all you want to see, you're going to be left unhappy because you have to offer a variety of stuff. Whether or not that variety is hitting, is still to be left in the air. It's still a new company. I don't know what direction they're kind of going down right now with this.
And here's also a little bit to your point. You can't be the renegade promotion or the upstart promotion and also be successful, right? Like once you receive a certain amount of success, you can't fall on the same narrative, which is, when your show beats the SmackDown rating head to head, both on cable, you can't then go, oh, we're the little company that could, right? You all of a sudden you are in a much bigger space, and that also probably was a part of what we feel like they tasted that success. They're like, man, how can we get more of that? And so you're just constantly trying to get back to that position, and the
But
things that
they,
they are
they
doing
tasted that
now.
success, Garrett. They tasted that success with barely stories, just matches, right? That's really how it started. I mean, you had a little bit. Everything was like a grudge match, or I want to prove to you I'm better than you. It wasn't this, like the devil. Who's the devil? That didn't exist
Yeah.
when they first started. A lot of it was I think we've said this a couple of weeks, right? Trent Beretta and Cesaro, right? Let's say that match. Claudio
Hmm.
and Trent Beretta.
Sure.
If WWE and I'm listen, you can be annoyed with me if you think that this is a bad analogy, but if this was a Monday Night Raw match, I would not care whatsoever. When AEW started, right? That's a normal middle of the road match that you'll have on TV. But when AEW was doing it, it meant a little bit more. Why? Because you knew they were taking it seriously and it was presented in a way that you wanted to see these matches. You wanted to see what happens. You know, a great example here. And I'm asking you, we were at that Chicago show. Should CM Punk's first match have been Darby Allin?
I don't know. Are you saying that maybe it
On
should have been a
paper.
bigger star?
On paper, yeah. Let's say you're right. On paper, should have been
Sure.
Darby Allin. I I would have said no, but because it's AEW and because of the way that they present their matches, it worked great. If that was a
Hmm.
WWE match, I would not have cared anything about Darby. I would have only cared about Punk. It was the overall presentation. We were all getting into it. It was fresh. It was new. It was different. It's still
Yeah.
fresh. I mean, it's still new, right? It's only a couple years old, but I think there's a number of things that have happened here. One, there's a lot of people that jump on bandwagons, and when WWE got hot, the criticism started for AEW. They also lost two key people in that company. That Cody being one, Punk
Hmm.
being another, Jade being another. It was one hit after another. And they've brought in a ton of new people to help with booking and creative and all that. So the company is changing. I think the reality is, if I'm going to be critical of one thing, I'm gonna say Tony should be very careful on who he has in key creative positions.
What if? Now, this is a big what if here. I'm not saying that this is exactly what happened or not, but what if AEW's biggest strength was having Vince McMahon booking WWE on the other side?
I think that was more. Honestly, I think that's more optics than anything else. Like I watched Monday Night Raw last night. I thought it was a good Raw. Is it that much different from Vince's Raw? No, it was a really good. It was a decent go home show.
Well, I can tell you what's different, which has to do with fan acceptance, right? Which is when you promote something and then the next week what you promoted is actually changed, the fan
Yeah.
base loses their trust with what you are promoting. And that happens way less. It still happens a little bit, but it happens way less without Vince. And also, I don't know how much this matters, but when you have a company and there's nothing but negative news about Vince McMahon week after week after week, and some real publications and some real television stations are covering this stuff, it does feel icky. And so you distance him from the big picture. And I don't think it feels as icky to be a WWE fan these days.
No, not at all. But I don't want to put the credit to WWE for why people are kind of poo pooing on AEW now. I don't think that's fair, in my opinion. Some people, that's probably how they feel, and that's fine. For me, I've never felt that. Eh, the reality is AEW caters towards my type of wrestling more. I watch Monday Night Raw, and sometimes I put my hand up in the air, and I have no idea what the hell they're doing. It's
Are you
so
like the Miz? You're,
convoluted and
you're telling the
complicated.
crowd to be quiet. Is that what you're doing?
No, the backstage moment with Adam Pierce yesterday with all
Hmm.
the women, the female wrestlers. It was just such like a chaotic
Yeah.
WWE backstage segment, right? That I
Yeah.
hate those. It comes off so hacky to me. Um, I maybe a little bit of is that people from the other side have come over and they're inputting their creative ideas, and the only thing that they know is what the other side has done, and it's not translating well on AEW TV. You made the joke that it was Impact the last couple of weeks. He was doing his best to book like it was Impact in 2012, 2013, 2014. Um, I I don't know. The creative on some of this stuff, not so great.
All right.
The
Well,
match is
we
fantastic.
we spent the first 20 minutes talking about the quote and some of the possible problems, but like you said, the pay-per-view was well received. It may not have been the A plus that they're used to from the fans. And there was stuff that paid off if you were following storylines. And the big story was MJF beating Jay White for the Triple B. He's got the Triple B back. But being that we both grew up as WWE fans, I think we knew what was going on with that main event right when it happened, right? We sort of sensed, because it sounded
Yeah.
like some people were frustrated just with the idea that, oh, the bad guys can just jump the heavyweight champion, take him out, and then you can just put someone else in the match. who's also injured. Like that whole thing, you couldn't take it seriously. Even if you tried, you couldn't take Adam Cole replacing MJF in this championship match seriously at all. To me, it was just the red herring that this thing is all fake and MJF's coming back. But what did you think of? Because this match to me was more about trying to do two things. One, nobody thought Jay White was going to win, so you wanted to put that little thing in the back of fans' mind. Like, oh, maybe he is going to win. I never thought that for 1 second, by the way. But the second thing, I don't know, man. This was like MJF was like Hulk Hogan in 1985. Like, this dude was just not going to lose. And so in that sense, he comes off as the biggest star on the show, the biggest baby face, your biggest baby face. He's unstoppable. Pain is means nothing to this man. He has a dislocation of his hip on a elbow drop to the outside. So it was also just some kind of cementing him as their top guy, as their top babyface, as their Hulk Hogan to me. What'd you think about the way that the main event ended?
I didn't love it. I didn't love that main event. I thought the leg injury kind of hampered the quality of the match more than anything else. It's interesting, right? Because they did that whole thing about how he couldn't compete and he had to go to the hospital, and Adam Cole's going to come and help him. Maybe that was the original story, right? From the beginning, before Adam Cole got hurt. And they just stuck to it. Right? Like, wouldn't it make more sense if Adam Cole, like, let's say that was the storyline and he wasn't injured and, now he's going to defend it for him and maybe he happens to lose the match, or maybe something happens and you kind of create the friction between the two. It's possible. I don't know why if that is the case, I don't know why they stuck to it. There were a lot of other outs from this that I could have seen happening. Or another one could have just been that this guy took a beating. They Pillmanized his leg, and he's still going to compete in this match. And that kind of tells you the story. Like, well, actually, he could still win it instead of putting that whole Adam Cole thing in the mix. I didn't love the main event. I didn't hate it. I think it was just a little too convoluted.
I lean more towards you than others that I've seen. What I didn't like about the main event is I didn't like him selling for 30 minutes on this knee. And yes, it's pro wrestling. I understand that. That is also one of my least favorite sayings in the world. It's just pro wrestling. But I watch I watch MMA, and guys fight hurt a lot. But if you're fighting against someone who's good, they're going to attack the injury and just break you down more or less. So this is pro wrestling universe. You got to understand that. But I just didn't like the selling for 30 minutes, man. Like that. The fact if it was like a 5 or a 10-minute sell, I would have thought it was one of the best sell jobs of the entire year. But to do it for 30 minutes, you can only fire up and Hulk up so many times to where I'm like, okay, like, all right, let's move on here. But, the live crowd liked it. I don't know if the at-home crowd liked it as much as the live crowd, but it was sort of a stamp on his year of him being the guy. And I guess he's really close to holding it for a full year. Did he win it last year at Full Gear?
I forgot. It's 300 and something days he has it. So I'm not sure how many days he has it right now.
Because he beat Mox for it, right? He beat Moxley.
Who has it? MJF has held it for 360. Oh, over a year.
Oh, wow. There you go.
367 plus. So I don't. Yeah, he won it at Full Gear last year in Newark.
And so now we are headed toward World's End with him against Samoa Joe in a rematch of a match that he won on television in your neck of the woods. So that's where they're going next with this story, and we'll see how they get there. They have a few weeks here. The Continental Classic, which we'll talk about in a second, will also dominate the TV. But let's get to your Swerve and Hangman match. You love that match.
Yeah.
I appreciated how hard those guys worked. That style of match is not my favorite style of match, but I am not going to then judge others for loving that style of match. It reminds me a little bit of like a of an action movie where you just can't kill people. Like you just abuse,
Yeah.
everything but the kitchen sink, and then finally there's an end to it. But I mean, the performances were amazing. When's the last time? I guess the last time we would have saw Hangman that fired up was the Texas Death Match against Moxley, but I thought he was even more fired up here. But then you get Swerve winning the match after Hangman told the audience that he was going to put him under the ground and piss on his grave, and he was the judge, the jury, and the executioner. And at the end of the day, he still lost the match.
Yeah. Um. So I this match was unbelievable.
Match of the year?
You remember the dog collar match, the tag dog collar match from last year with FTR and
The Briscoes.
and the Briscoes? And
Yeah.
how, it stood out. Was it match of the year? I mean, debatable, right? You could have that argument, right? I don't know.
There's a lot
It
of great
depends on
matches.
how you like. I could tell you 5 different match of the years that I have in my mind, and you'll probably disagree with it. It's one person's opinion. But like for someone that doesn't like death matches, like I'm not against blood or gigging or anything. Like you got to tell a story, and if it makes sense for your story and it's done well, I appreciate anything, right? I really am not a death match guy.
Mhm.
Obviously, there have been tremendous death matches out there that people will unanimously say, no, this is the one. Funk Onita. You could talk about these things, right? I've never seen anything to this level. Is it my match of the year? No, because it's not my preferred style. But holy moly, if I'm going to talk about a match from 2023 that I'm going to remember, it's going to be that match. And it's not because it was just a car crash. They told a story with what they did. And it elevated both of those guys. I watched it 3 times, Garrett. I'm not no bullshit. No, I'm not exaggerating. I watched it the first time I watched it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but I had to turn it off. It's my wife. It was like kind of watching. I was like, in and out. I watched it in the morning, and then I watched it again at night after I did the show. I did Observer, and I was like, man, for someone that doesn't like this style, how can I deny how great it was if I was so invested in it? Now, should Hangman have won? Should Swerve have won? I don't know. The only thing I did not like that it didn't need was the Brian Cage run-in.
That was
I
unnecessary.
thought it was unnecessary because they could have done something else. I don't think Swerve needed that assist because you built this guy as a major contender against a world champion, a former world champion. They elevated Swerve to a whole different level. Hangman got back to where he was. Ironically enough, I would say when they came out of the pandemic, when I think it was the first match on the main card, it was Hangman and Brian Cage. Remember that they did it at
Daly's place?
in Daly's place. Sorry, I was gonna say Full Sail over and over again in my head. I don't know why. They did. Remember that match at Full Sail? The pop for Hangman, that to me was okay. You know what? This guy is the future of this company, right? He's one of those.
Yeah.
We talk about the 4 pillars. He's one of those guys that'll be at the top. And then he kind of got deflated, for numerous reasons. This was the first time I felt that this guy was back, and you could build on him. Just like how you're building your company right now around MJF and everything else that's happening with him, you could have done the same with Hangman. I still feel the same way. I think they created a big star in Swerve. Again, look how excited I am to talk about this, right? And I don't even like this style of match. So it shows that, listen, if you are open-minded and you watch wrestling and you understand what's good and what's not, you may appreciate this. If you're really disgusted by the blood, there's no turning back, right? Like if that's your thing, I get it, and you'll never be into this. I mean, was the drinking of the blood spot a little much? Sure, but I mean, it added something. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, so let's talk about that the blood drinking thing. Now,
Yeah.
when you do something like that, you are doing it to shock, right? It's for shock value. And the negotiation there is the shock value going to be enough for the negativity that people will experience watching the match? Drinking blood, whatever you feel about that, it's again, it was more shock value than anything else. But did that enhance or take away from your viewing of the match?
No, I saw it as heightening yeah, you could look at it and be like, okay, it was for shock reasons. I look at because I enjoyed that match, I saw it as he is showing how effing deranged he's gotten because this man broke into his house and went into his child's bedroom. Like how if I someone did that, right, to me, I would be deranged. I would be a lunatic. And that's what he did. He portrayed a father that has lost his effing mind because this man went into his home to prove a point that I can make you the victim. I'm in charge of the situation, not you. And for a husband and for a father to feel so to feel like you can't do anything about it at that moment, I think it brought him to this crazy deranged moment. I
Mhm.
obviously, if I'm sitting there and creative and I'm writing it, that's how I'm going to pitch this. But I just felt that it was done. I didn't find anything out of place. I, I'm glad they went. That they were able to explore this different way of doing this match. And you know what? We're going to talk about this forever. This is going to be one of those matches the next 10, 15 years. People look at this and they say, I cannot believe this is what they did.
So, if you had an intruder and this person went into you have two children, went into one of their bedrooms and infuriated you so much, you would sit under their dripping forehead and drink their blood? Is that what you are telling me?
Because I've lost my mind, Garrett. I've lost my effing mind.
Well, I guess you
But
can't
also,
actually get arrested for
Listen,
that. So
I'm going to
that's
tell you
probably a
something,
safe
okay?
thing to do.
I'm going to little behind the scenes conversation here. Do you remember the Vegas get together, right?
Which one?
There were certain people in that room, right? Remember when
Mhm.
we did for Double or Nothing, right?
Sure.
JJ was there, right? And we were
Mhm.
talking to him. There was
Yeah.
maybe somebody from that is in AEW now, right? He was there
Okay.
also.
Okay.
Do you remember do you remember the conversation I was having with everybody?
I don't remember.
Okay. I said, how wonderful would it have been? I love vampire gimmicks, okay? I don't care how
Yes.
bad they are,
Okay. Yeah, now I
okay? I
remember.
love vampire
Yes.
gimmicks. I love the Danhausen. I booked like 1987 to 1989 Bruno Sammartino returning, but
Yes.
he's a vampire. And what
Yes.
happens? He sucks their blood in the match, but he can't with certain people because their blood is tainted, like Hulk Hogan's and Macho
Yeah.
Man's.
He's
I
gonna test
can't too
positive.
much Winstrol. I can't
Yeah.
drink the blood. You know, I think that person kind of like they were coming up with whoever. Maybe that person
Yeah.
remembered
Maybe
this
that
and
was
was like, oh, you know
pitched.
what? Let's make him. Hangman's a vampire. He's a brood. Edge is there.
There you go.
Christian's there. He could join in. They're all
There you
vampires.
go.
Danhausen, put them all together.
That makes the most sense of anything that I've heard as far as why.
You
he had
know
to
what?
drink the
I
blood.
should talk to that person. By the way, whoever came up with the creative for that, kudos to them.
Well, I will say that my hope is what you said, which is Swerve is at another level because I think he's got it. Whatever it is, I think he's got it. He can freshen up some of this stuff. And I just find him to be fantastic. So looking forward to what comes next for Swerve here because he is leveling up. And Prince Nana with the cheerleaders was awesome in the entrance too.
Yeah, I
All
was
right, what?
never a Prince Nana fan, and he has won me over so
Yeah,
much on TV with that terrible dance. He dances as well as I do, and I'm a terrible dancer. I he moves like he has arthritis in his hips like me.
Yeah. What else from that pay-per-view? What was there anything else that you really found to be, something you wanted to chit chat about here before we move on to talk about some Survivor Series?
Um, I thought Tony Storm's match could have been a little bit different.
Okay, was that
I didn't love.
too sports entertainment for you?
A little bit. That was a little bit too sports entertainment. I think, the hokiness of the whole Tony Storm gimmick, I love. I love the character. I like it when she like starts talking in the matches. But it was so over the top. Like, I guess maybe, she's not a vaudeville. It was too vaudevillian,
Yeah.
big spots and big goofy moment. It didn't do it for me.
What about the Young Bucks? It looks like they are going to go full heel as much as possible, I guess. There's Brandon Cutler's been tweeting out some stuff about them. But what did you think about the Young Bucks and Jericho and Omega?
I much like other people, I didn't get into it in the beginning. I think they followed that crazy match, so it was difficult, right? They were right after that. But it picked up at the end. I don't know what they're doing with that tag team. I don't know what the story is, but if the Bucks are turning heel, they're much better as heels than baby faces, for sure.
Can they actually be real heels instead of like whiny passive aggressive heels? Or is that where the heat is? Do you think that's where the heat
That's where
is
the
for
heat
them?
is. Yeah. Yeah, they're always whiny passive aggressive heels.
I know, but I want them to be like a little bit more dastardly heels than the whiny crybaby. Because the whole build to this was like, oh, you like Jericho, but you're supposed to like us. we have to fight.
I
mean, it's
know.
so
And
silly.
did you see that response? Somebody was criticizing. He's like, "Hey, at least we're on the card," or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is the fact that they weren't, really a part of the build to this entire show, being that they are the local team, it was kind of crazy in of itself. All right, so as we head, we'll talk about Survivor Series, but I just wanted to get your last second thoughts here. Supposedly, this Continental Classic is supposed to start on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Tony's talking about the greatest wrestling tournament, and so he's building it up, and he's like, you fans better come and watch this thing. You've been asking me about it, but there's no card yet. There's no brackets. There's no blocks. And so I want to be excited about it because I think it suits my wrestling fandom. He's probably talking to me, even though I've supported what they're doing as a fan. We don't even know what match is happening on Wednesday. We don't know anything. There's supposed to be some sort of streaming show that's going to go through the whole thing, I guess, that's going to be watched by, I don't know, how many people on YouTube before we get to Dynamite. This whole thing has been so rushed, but are you excited about this? Because I mean, if it's going to be for the next, the next 4 weeks or whatever of TV, next 5 weeks, there can be some really strong matches here. And he's saying, there's going to be no interference. So this is going to be a straight shot here.
And the Ring of Honor title is on the line, right? And so is the New Japan Strong Openweight.
Yes. Yeah. So that is a little bit confusing as far as why that matters. So the ROH title, the New Japan Strong title, and then what is the other one?
The Continental.
And this Continental Classic, title. Whatever this is. So, they're trying to make this a multi-tier. Like, is anybody in the main event scene vying for that New Japan Strong title? Like, why do we care? Why does anybody care about that title? Like that's the answer that I need. Why is that a big deal? Why is this ROH championship a big deal? Like, why does somebody who wants to see Kenny Omega wrestle really great matches, why are they going to care that those belts are included in this prize?
Well, also, is this going to consolidate everything into one title, or are you going to walk around with 3 titles now if you win this? Are you going to split the titles eventually? There's so many titles already.
Yeah, can you only defend one of these in a match and not defend the other
I
two
don't
when you
know.
finally win
I
it?
don't know.
Yeah, like
I
what I was telling somebody was the now the G1 in of itself, the booking of that whole thing, I'm sure is very complicated. Like there's lots of thought put into it, but the actual once you have the schedule and you see the matches and you see the matchups, it is pretty easy to follow. And so what Tony did is he took this thing that is actually pretty easy to follow and he made it super convoluted for some reason that I'm not sure of. So I hope there's going to be more clarity tomorrow before Dynamite so that we can engage and we can make some predictions and we can come on this show next week and have our little blocks and our brackets and our predictions and try and figure this thing out because that's what makes it fun. That's what makes the G1 fun other than watching the match is just the engagement. We want engagement and stuff like this. So the fact that these blocks aren't out yet, we or else maybe this show would be more about the Continental Classic than about Tony's quote from the presser. So I think they should hopefully figure that stuff out by this Wednesday and have it all set so that we can
Yeah.
move on and follow it the way that we want.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this plays out.
All right, let's talk about some Survivor Series here. I've been doing some research, going through some old 1987 Wrestling Observer newsletters because I'm trying to find when is the first time Dave mentions the Survivor Series as a possible pay-per-view. I haven't gotten through enough of the years yet to kind of figure that out, but I was reading through these observers, and I don't know how far back you've gone to read some of these old observers, but the thing that I love are the nicknames that Dave gets, because this is like a mid to late 20-year-old Dave, right? This is like a young Dave, and he's kind of on fire. And so these are nicknames that I'd never heard before.
Okay, I need to hear this now.
Andre the Giant Embarrassment.
Andre the Giant Embarrassment.
That's a rough one for old Andre.
Oh man.
What about his nickname for WrestleMania 3? Rest Hold Mania 3.
Dave was a savage. 20-something-year-old Dave. What a loose cannon that guy was.
He was definitely on fire. But so I kind of wanted to get here and have a little bit of some information, but I don't have enough. I'll probably have some for maybe if I do Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave this week or do the Fight Game podcast with John the Rock. I'll have some of this stuff. I'll be through enough of the 87 observers to go through some stuff. But we do need to talk about Survivor Series because Raw was all about the man who shall not be named, except we're going to call him by his nickname. We're just not going to call him by his government name on the television show. The Apex
CM Punk,
Predator.
Right? Yeah. No, that's they're throwing the scent off. It's Punk, right? That's what they meant? No? Isn't that his new nickname?
That would be quite a surprise, right? CM Punk comes out in the Randy Orton boxers or the Randy Orton tights. He comes out, he starts doing RKOs on everybody. Yeah, that would be quite the scene. But old Randy Orton at what is he? 43 years old, over 20 years in the business. He's still there to pop the surprise for the live crowd. Yeah. He's still got it. What do you think about Randy Orton being added to this main event?
I mean, it makes sense, but maybe this is a road Orton and Orton has a natural program with Cody for sure, right?
Yes.
So maybe that's what it could lead to. I don't think they're going to just throw him in there and have him be wasted as just a random guy in this match. I think there's a reason why he's in it. I'd love to see him and Cody again, That'd be fantastic. They have a natural story. They need to do something. I think the big question is, okay, what do you do for a Royal Rumble? We're almost there. Mm-hmm. This is what we have to get to. And whether or not Cody is challenging for a title or not, we'll find out in the next, 60 days or so. But I think it's good to have Orton there.
According to Cody, not even The Rock he believes can take his spot this year. He thinks he's going to be in some big stuff.
Well, I
So
mean, you did hear that Dwayne was going to Pride in 1997, so I don't know if Cody could compete with that.
yeah, I guess when you go on Joe Rogan's podcast, since there's so much like fibbing on that show and so much misinformation, you just like, oh, I'm gonna do it too. Like, yeah,
No.
Pride
It's
97.
the line of ayahuasca. Joe lays out like a nice chopped up line of ayahuasca, and these guys just go. Hulk Hogan was, he invented the space shuttle. I don't know if you heard that part.
Yeah, so the Survivor Series is a little bit of a hard sell. The show in of itself, and especially early on, it was really just about getting these tag matches where you'd see these guys tag together who had never been in tag matches with each other before. And then you would add, I think Hogan and The Undertaker was the first like title match actually, on the show 5 years later from the original Survivor Series. But now they're kind of back to the War Games being the new Survivor Series elimination style match, being the draw. So we're back to the teams being the draw, facing each other or teaming each other to face whomever they all have a similar beefs with. And there's no Roman, there's no title matches. Seth, the other champion, he's in this title match. Do you think War Games in of itself, being that we're getting two of these matches, is draw enough for the Survivor Series?
Yeah, I think so. It's a traditional show. You get War Games, that's why you're ordering it. You're going to get a War Games match, and people are going to be into it. This is Cody's first War Games, which is nice,
Not his first Blood and Guts, though.
Not his first Blood and Guts, his first War Games. So, I'm excited for it. I'm going to watch it with the kids, I wasn't going to watch AEW with them, but I'll watch this with them.
Yeah, my John LaRocca, my buddy's the same way. He's like, man, I'm just so worried that something's going to happen. I'm going to have to explain to my wife why these kids are saying all these bad words and stuff. So yeah, he doesn't let them watch AEW. So we have the men's match. We're adding Randy Orton to it. On the women's side, on SmackDown, they added Becky Lynch to it. So we got one women's match that is 4-on-4, and then we have a men's match that is 5-on-5. And in addition, we have Rhea Ripley and Zoe Stark, where the storyline is that Rhea Ripley is actually not really paying attention to her title match because Judgment Day business is a little bit more important. And Zoe's like, you're taking your eye off the ball. You're not paying hard enough attention to me, and I'm going to beat you. And Rhea's still going to beat her, but that's not necessarily the best build that they've ever done for a women's match here, or a women's title match. We also have the Gunther and Miz. What did you think of this back and forth on Raw between the Miz and Gunther?
First of all, Gunther is so impressive, right?
He's awesome.
He has morphed into a totally different human being, which is fantastic. He was great before, but he's unbelievable now. I mean, he really made the Miz look like an idiot. He's like, you're a weirdo. You're a loser. You got bullied your whole life. You came here, you got bullied, and you're continuing to get bullied. And I'm like, the Miz is not a loser. And he's really not that weird. The guy made a whole career, a tremendous career, from being criticized his whole career as a terrible wrestler. And now, he's one of the safest workers in that company. I don't know. I thought it was a weird promo, but I think for Gunther, it only elevated him as being a bigger star. And I think it made The Miz look like just a chump.
You know why I liked it, though? Because The Miz was acting like a fan. Like, he's doing Randy Savage impersonations, talking about these guys were his heroes and all of that. And what it was is, like, if you are in the, this is, now we're going back a ways to how Miz came into the business, right? The John Layfield, like, locking him out of locker rooms and stuff.
Hold on. I got a correction from one of our producers. Cody was never in a Blood and Guts in AEW.
He was not?
He was not.
I thought he was in the first one. No, he'd already left by then?
I got a correction. FYI,
Huh.
Cody was never in a blood and guts. He better be right.
Yeah, I stand corrected if that is correct. Because I
Sorry,
guess
sorry,
yeah, it would have
I had
been
to put it
in.
in there.
It would have been in. So the 2021 Blood and Guts was the first one, and that match had
Pinnacle
the
inner
Pinnacle
circle.
in the Inner Circle. So Cody was not in that match. Cody was on that show. He just was not in the Blood and
Yeah,
Guts match.
yeah.
And then if you go to 2022, the Blood and Guts match was Blackpool Combat Club, Eddie and Santana against the Jericho Appreciation Society, and Cody was already gone by then. Wow.
So
That's
it is. I mean,
very
it
interesting.
is kind of special, right? And
Yeah, it is special.
it's cool.
Absolutely.
I love Gunther. I think he's, he is getting ready for that main event, and I'd love to see him with a title. This post Roman stuff. I don't know what they're gonna do with this. Maybe he holds on to that title for another 200 days. Who knows?
Well, you know who's the gatekeeper these days? The one you got to beat before you can get to Roman. Brock Lesnar.
Oh, where is he? Yeah, maybe.
Gunther and Brock. Let's do it at WrestleMania,
I
baby.
want that. Holy moly! For the IC title, I'm in. Oh, what a wacky match! What a wacky match. I know that we're running out of time, but I wanted to ask you about this.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think the mystery of why WCW failed and ceased to exist, will that ever be solved? This is one of the biggest mysteries of the universe, right? Why? What happened? It just poof, it vanished.
Okay. There is one small mystery that I need to ask Dave about. Okay. So, Eric Bischoff.
Who was driving the white Hummer?
Eric Bischoff and Fusient Media. Remember Fusient Media?
Yes.
They were going to buy the company, and then they pulled the TV, and so the company was not as valuable without the television on TBS and TNT.
Yeah.
And so I think what happened, and this is where my memory could be off and why I need to ask Dave. I think Eric Bischoff and Fusient Media was like, okay, well, without the TV, we have to sort of figure out what the offer is. And even before they could make the second offer for WCW, they already sold it to WWE.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I'm going to tell you why. I love that portion of pro wrestling. That time frame of wrestling was when I got so heavily invested, and I would listen to Dave on IATA, and I think it might have been like the March 19th show, or it was whatever was after Greed. What, right? That was in March, right? That was their last pay-per-view. I believe that's what happened, because Eric went on and he's like, "Oh, we've agreed in principle," And WCW was saved, and then within like 2 days or 3 days, right? It was a very short period of time. It fell apart.
Yeah.
Wild.
So why did it happen like that? What was the?
Isn't the rumor that WWE had a guy in? They had somebody involved that was more leaning towards kind of pushing for a sale to WWE. The other thing that I always found interesting,
did that person also influence the canceling of the TV show for that reason? That would be interesting.
The TV show was canceled, but also Buffy was canceled. So I don't think that's. I think who was running it at that? It wasn't Jamie Kellner. It was.
I think he was the one who did make the decision.
Who canned it?
Was
it Jamie Kellner? I mean, boneheaded move. Really, I think he just didn't like wrestling. And they didn't want wrestling. There were tons of people within that organization that thought it was so lowbrow and so crappy. Should WCW have gone away? No. In today's playing field, in today's TV market, it would have never gone away. It would be impossible for it to go away. There would have been another avenue for them to go. But remember, this was a time that ECW was done. There was no other network available. WWE was leaving USA. USA was done with wrestling. Fox Sports was maybe a thing at that point. There really weren't too many avenues for them to go. I would have loved to see what that WCW version of Eric Bischoff's presentation would have been in Vegas, because he was going to move the whole operation there. Would it have ever become relevant? I don't know. I don't know what would have happened. Maybe it would have just turned into TNA. I mean, we did get TNA, and all those guys ended up there anyway. The other interesting part of that WCW deal, which is a mystery, is the price of the sale. Right? What
Mhm.
we've heard 3 million, we heard 7 million. Bruce Pritchard on one of the podcasts with Conrad said that they had a commitment for ads through Turner's advertising, their marketing company, and it was like a $20 million or so. Don't quote me on the number, right? Because I can't remember. It was years ago. But I think they were like in it for like $20 million to spend with Turner's marketing,
Hmm.
which is interesting, right? So really, that kind of changed everything. I mean, then you're talking about a $27 million sale, which makes way more sense than just $3 to $7 million.
So this is for Turner buying ads on WWE television?
I don't know. I think it was I gotta re-listen to it. I'm curious if you guys have seen it. Um, I think he said it was like they were doing their marketing or they were in their advertising. You know, when they go into
Mhm.
markets, they would take the TV time or something. Someone needs to find that for me. I can't even tell you what show it was on. I can tell you what I was doing. I was walking home. It was like 5:30 in the afternoon, and I was like, my ears perked up, and I was like, wait a minute, I've never heard that before. Have you?
I don't. I mean, I think you've told me this story before, so I've heard this from
Maybe I
you.
have. Maybe I
Yeah.
did. Maybe I remembered better then when I told you the first time, but not now. You know
Maybe.
who we have to ask? Dave.
Yeah, we have to ask Dave. Though, I don't know. Dave and Bruce once good communicators, now maybe not so much.
Best work in wrestling after Montreal.
All right, last little bit about Survivor Series here. How are you going to make it a point to watch this show, or does it being a holiday weekend, does that kind of ruin it a little bit to where maybe you got some family stuff going on and this isn't as much of a priority?
Survivor Series was a big tradition in my house during Thanksgiving. My uncle would come over, my cousins would come over. We'd all watch it. Even afterwards, when they moved to weekends, we would all still get together and watch Survivor Series. So for me, I'm passing a tradition with my kids, and I'm going to watch it with my kids. So
So
it's
you're
a
watching it
priority for
live.
me. I'm
Yeah.
watching it live. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I think we're gonna watch at Dave's. So we'll be at Big Dave's watching on Saturday.
No
Because
Collision. You're not watching Collision?
no, no. We'll see if we get to Collision. Because man, gonna be another bad beat for them going heads up against Survivor Series after they got moved to Friday and did that
Yeah.
number that they did. So yeah,
Well,
rough sledding for
now
Collision.
now we know why they're not going to run Friday
Yeah, the one that you said.
for
Yeah,
yeah for World's End.
World's End
It's
weekend.
233,000 viewers, 280, whatever it was, that number. Obviously, they were going to get destroyed. It's not their regular night, and they're up against SmackDown. So I don't know what they expected. But even the Saturday numbers, that needs to kind of shift a little bit. A little too
Yeah.
low.
Well, we'll see if this tournament works. Like Tony said, put your money where your mouth is. See if they draw some ratings with these good sports wrestling matches that we're gonna get to see.
Sports. We need more sports.
Sports centric. Maybe they can. Maybe they could put college football helmets on and they come down to the ring. Make it even more sports.
Do you remember those terrible football based Raws that we had in
Yeah.
1993, 1994, where you had two different teams? They should start doing those terrible matches. Everybody's in a crop top.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, I want to tell you, Andrew, have a great holiday with your family.
Same. You too as well.
Tell all the viewers and all the listeners to have a great week and get some rest and have some fun and watch some wrestling. They were already going to do that anyways. There's no need to remind people to watch wrestling.
Enjoy what you like. Like what you like. Don't like what you don't like. It's fine.
Yeah.
Not everything is for everybody.
What if in the main event, Randy Orton, he takes a blood capsule, explodes it in his mouth, and he just drips the blood capsule into Cody's mouth?
I would pay you $1,000 if they did that.
Yeah, let's not do that. No,
Pay
we
you
don't need to do
$1,000.
all
What if,
right.
maybe they do the hard way too. It's
Oh
not the first
gosh.
time Randy's. Yeah, maybe they do that again.
No, don't do that.
Let's all get
That
concussed.
is bad. All right, everyone. Thanks for checking it out with us. We will see you next week. Fingers crossed. Peace out.